The next two paragraphs deal with seller's closing costs and buyer's closing costs. Now, those are different in different places. The truth is, there is no closing cost whatsoever that is required to pay by one party or the other, except when you're selling and getting them a new government loan. When you're selling to a new owner-occupant type buyer and they're going to get new financing, you're going to be required to pay the deed stamps, you're going to be required to pay the tax service, and you're going to be required to pay satisfaction of mortgages, and that's about all you're required to pay now. But other than that, there is no ironclad rule. It's whatever you negotiate with your buyer or your seller. If I'm selling a junker here to Todd, could Todd pay all the closing costs? In fact, will he? If I'm giving Todd a great deal and I know it's a deal and he's a deal, he ain't going to argue about the closing costs. And if he does, it won't be a long argument. In fact, well, we'll get to taxes in a minute, but could Todd even to buy this property without me paying the back taxes that might be owed on it? Could he take over the taxes as part of the deal? You betcha. It's whatever him I agree upon. Could you sell to an owner-occupant that's getting new financing without paying the taxes first? No way. No way. You'll pay the taxes. It'll come out of your proceeds, but you'll pay the taxes. But when I'm dealing with an investor here selling a junker, it's whatever him and I agree upon, period. There is no rule that says I got to pay X and he's got to pay X, despite what some of your realtors will tell you. Now, there's a difference between what you can do and what's customary, isn't there? It's customary for the seller to always pay the transfer tax in this state called deed stamps, and in Delaware it's customary for the seller to pay half and the buyer to pay half. Same with Maryland, where they have a 3.5% transfer tax. That doesn't mean it's mandatory. It's just customary. I try to stick with what's customary as much as possible when I'm buying from skilled sellers like lending institutions and so forth. In fact, when I'm filling out a contract with a realtor, I'll say, what do you think this seller would expect me to pay? And many times it's less than what I would agree to pay. Sometimes the seller expects to pay the transfer tax and the title. If that's the case, I'll just let them have their way. Let them pay them both. Many times I'm willing to pay for the title. Seller always pays real estate brokerage, don't they? Yeah? And the seller almost always pays transfer tax. That's customary. Title insurance can go either way around here. Half the time seller pays it, half the time buyer pays it. That's customary.